So, the question was, hey, will it show up in their task section as something that could be assigned to people and that sort of thing? So there's this connection between goals, which is this, higher level view of these things, and initiatives, right? So objectives, key results, and then initiatives. And those initiatives have tasks. And so there's a bunch of different tasks. There's like, have you checked in this key result, right? There's those types of tasks. And then there's tasks like, we think of tasks like to-dos, right? Things you need to do in order to achieve those things. And actually, in both places, there's rich integration. So, as an example, you could have a goal be updated. I'll go back to a slide that was shown a little bit earlier. You could have a goal that was updated from something like Excel or a task in Planner, or Azure DevOps is basically task ADO scenarios. So, Power Project Online, things like that. You can have all those things feed in and actually update key results kind of dynamically without having to manage anything. Or I really liked your call out, Jamie. Like, you can also set up your own systems for reminding people, alerting them, notifying them, helping encourage them, and incentivizing them to update this. Like, I know the Teams notifications I get are really helpful for me because I see them. I blend in with my rest of them. I get insights ones, I get goals ones, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't checked in on those goals, but we have made some big progress. Let me go do that motion. So, if you're an Outlook person like me, you'll use that. And if you're a Teams person, which I have to wear those two hats, I use that Teams activity feed a lot, where it, automatically lights up in that experience.
Yeah, I did want to add to that. So, well, I did drop into the chat, and those who are, for the recording purpose, I don't know how much we're going to add of this, but for the recording and also for anyone who can't see the chat potentially, I did drop in some documentation regarding how to configure check-in reminders and notifications. So that's a little bit different. That's kind of looking at how you want people to interact with, like what assigned task. I don't know if you, oh yeah, you are pulling it up. I didn't know how much we wanted to pivot off. So
yeah, why not?
Okay, cool. So yeah, basically this will kind of guide you through, and I linked to the specific section. So this is actually a longer article, but I linked specifically here just to drill into how you can do this for when you have individual owners, assigned people or multiple owners. And this is something I really regret not landing earlier in the session, which was how often are we contributing to multiple projects, right? We have a role function, and it's tough to try and hit everything. So forgive me here, but how often are we, let's say, contributing because, hey, we're good at this, or this is our responsibility, but we do so in multiple projects or multiple ways in the business. And so if you're a subject matter expert, or, like I said, you kind of have a particular role function, then you're a part of multiple projects and potentially multiple objectives, right? And there are multiple parts of the business that you have to lean in on. And so instead of this whole chaos of having to figure out, okay, this team works this way and this team works this way, it's kind of like helping to unify that a lot. And one thing that I wanted to showcase on some of those demo slides as James was going through is, yes, we were focused on the Copilot element of it, but if we back out a couple steps, and Richard, if you could jump to that, just looking at the left-hand side, you've got this whole guide here, and you can see Richard's mouse there, right? So you can see quick start guide. So we're showing you tools like how to actually use it, right? Notifications, modifying how you are interacting with the tool. Explorer helps you look around to, I believe this is like exploring other, it's like a bigger view,
pre-built,
right?
Queries almost of like that make sense of things like what are overdue, or what are like high risk ones. Anyways, there's the different ways that it organizes.
It just helps you, exactly, like filter and break it down in different ways, right? And this is so helpful because typically people get, like I said, a little lost, but you'll notice down there at the bottom it says pinned, and we've got all these different OKRs, and people are thinking, well, what is that? When and why do I go to either one? And I think the point is here to say you are going to have so many different points of movement throughout your year. Some projects take 6 months, or your contribution is only 6 months, but the objective is a 3-year objective, right? But you have this ability to be flexible, but have the visit and have the consistent place to check. So while your work might span in a million places, it's all consolidated in one easy way to read, right? And everyone's kind of on the same thought process. And then also things like, above showing you the different teams you're engaged with, the different users. And I love, to Richard's point, you can probably see me on the recording now. I smiled so big when you brought it back to skills in Viva, because that was what we highlighted, right? That visibility, and like why the whole Viva modules and our employee experience platform integrated into our M365 cloud is so valuable is you constantly see these points of integration. We're trying to feed back together at all times, right? So yeah, just really wanted to highlight that. So notifications is one thing, and cross app connectivity and integration, fantastic. But it's all these things coming together that I just had to land while everyone's still here.
I love it. For other questions, feel free to share them. I did see a separate message on LinkedIn of all places, so thank you for that. The question was basically you mentioned like how people do the check-ins. So
Yeah.
it's actually really important to think about ownership. So in this little column that you see here, it has like an owner section. And as we kind of look in this cascade, you can see there's different owners, and optimally, it is optimal to have one owner if you can. That doesn't mean they're the person who has to do the check-ins, though. And I think that's actually a really important point. There's delegation capabilities, both in things, of course, communication that we talked about, like Viva Engage and things like that. But you can also delegate here. And that kind of delegation becomes a really empowering tool because we can still have something owned by a capital leader. But if really they're not maintaining it, like that's not really their, the person who's really driving these connections or things like that, if it's not automated, is someone doing those check-ins, you can delegate that and you can represent that. You can also have objectives that are private. That's a really important thing. I think a lot of organizations underestimate. Of course, we want amplified visibility and transparency, but along with that delegation, there are definitely some sub-objectives that we often make private, at least in our org, around performance, around profitability and things like that, where we want to be all on the same page, but we don't need everyone else to see, those metrics and get concerned about some of those things because it goes up and down based on the stage of the sequence, seasonality, all sorts of things like that. So lots more to discuss on like optics and management, but I think delegation is a great comment, right? How do we not just integrate this with people, but how do we distribute this to the right owners?
Yeah, that's a good point too, because we see that at like a project level, right? We see tools like that where delegation is so significant just to get certain tasks done. But like, how does that continue to sort of feed up? And I love the call out to privacy too, because that's the other thing is like transparency is great, but then people overthink it and they start to say, okay, well, how can I structure this so people don't know that like our goal is to save costs? We don't want them to start speculating on what that means and, start to be concerned, right? And start to sort of interpret or intuit some of the stuff that isn't exactly, isn't appropriate for people to know or to see because there's context that's not their role and that they shouldn't see, right? There's bigger picture business things that need to happen outside of what they understand in their day-to-day role. So, but that's like one example, right? There's so many reasons why we need to sometimes create that sort of silo of information where it's necessary and break down, have a little bit of privacy, and then transparency where we do need it. So we're not, dealing with overexposure or challenges that kind of transparency can create.